Good morning. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Maldives. I have 30 slides, so I'm going to apologize in advance for the speed at which I go through them, but you have them printed in front of you, and you are welcome to approach me anytime. So I am from the National Center for Information Technology, the key agency responsible for e-government development in Maldives. And I'm going to be talking about Maldives and hopefully giving you a perspective of the kind of context in which a small island developing nation works in the field of e-government. So to start with, I'll give you a brief background and then look at the strategic and regulatory context, and then go into the actors and institutions, opportunities and challenges, e-government initiatives, and at the end, just highlight the development in terms of the UN eGov survey. So the country itself, we are a very big country, about 850 kilometers from top to bottom. So, but I started saying that we are a small country. No, we are a tiny country. Only a minute fraction, not even 1% of the country is land. So there is our challenge. So we have just under 1,200 islands. We have people living on nearly 200 islands. We have communities that are mostly 300 to 500 of a population. So look at the infrastructure. The country is connected from top to bottom using radio technology. So we have two backbones that connect, two providers that have backbone technologies. And in addition, we have fiber technology connecting us to the rest of the world through our neighbors, India and Sri Lanka. Looking at the journey, I think our e-government journey, I trace it back all the way to the early 1980s when we first started using a computer in the public sector. Our very first computer, a mini computer, was used to help with our census. And then a decade later, the government instituted the first training program for modernizing government officials. And it started training government officials in management, in administration, modern administration, NPM in fact. And then, in addition, the institute also had a role of training government officials in IT. This is where I started my public service career, teaching IT to the government officials. A decade later, in the early 2000s, e-government actually came to the forefront as a strategic option for the government, as something that they could actually do apart from all the different other initiatives the government were taking for modernizing and reforming public sector and for delivery of public services to all these hundreds of islands and small communities. So our work really started in the early 2000s. Our institute came into being in the early 2000s, in 2003. And by 2006, we had the government network, which connected almost all the main government agencies. And by 2010, all these main government agencies were communicating. All the G2G communications were by directive and in practice through a government G2G system, a central communication system. So this is just to highlight some of the key things so far. Look at the strategic context. We have a national strategic action plan, which is the apex policy document for the government. And then below it, there are a number of sectoral plans and strategies, and all of this is supported by the National Center for Information Technology strategic plan. The whole context of e-government in Maldives is not a big e-government strategy or e-government plan, but is a strategic tool for going to attaining these strategic or very important national goals of good government and economic development. So in fact, the strategic action plan talks about good governance. This is a national objective, a national goal. And then to achieve this good governance, it talks about public sector reform as one of its key thrust areas. And to achieve public sector reform, it says we've got to use e-governance. So e-governance is about good governance through public sector reform in Maldives. And then the strategic action plan also talks about economic development. And it says one of the things we have to do for economic development is work on our science and technology development, our communications development. And one of the key ways of doing that, it says, is to use e-government. So e-government has this two-pronged approach. It is actually embedded deep in as a key strategy that supports the national objectives. The national objective is never about being e-government or e-Maldives. It is about attaining certain levels of good governance, about getting economic development. At the end of the day, it's about the people's living standard. It's about the happiness of the people, the contentment. So, looking at the NCIT's e-government strategy, here we talk about people, capacity building. We talk about shared infrastructure. So this is this kind of looks at how we are going to approach the whole idea, how we are going to support the national strategic action plan, how we are going to make sure that e-government supports economic development, how we are going to make sure e-government supports good governance and public sector reform. So the key areas here basically about having a concept where we have ICT consolidation and shared services, where we have capacity building. Now, as far as the regulatory side is concerned, we do not have an e-government or IT or transaction act. We currently have an e-government act which is in draft, which we are hoping to be tabled in the next session to the Parliament. So when this goes through, the National Center for Information Technology will become a statutory body, supported, led by a chief executive and supported by an advisory board. And among its many mandates, one of the key things I think to highlight from here is the IT budgeting. We would have a key role in IT budgeting. And another key thing to highlight here is things like e-signature, data privacy, .gov domains. These things would now come legally under our mandate. Now, looking at the actors, well, the National Center for Information Technology is the central body. There is no other body for e-government development and for IT development in general as well. At the National Center for Information Technology, we work in e-government operations. As I've already explained, part of the e-gov, especially the G2G part, is currently in operation. And the government depends heavily on this e-government development, the future of e-government, and e-gov strategy and R&D. And the NCIT, the National Center for Information Technology, is supported by some national level committees. And the most active of these committees is the ICT champions. You might call them CIO forums in your countries. We call them IT champions. And each sector, the economic development sector, the communication sector, the education sector, each sector has designated an IT champion who will work with us in developing and in operationalizing e-government. So at NCIT, our vision is not about e-this or e-that. It's about the quality of life. And it's about innovation. So there's a big mandate here, so I will not go through that. Opportunities and challenges. There are many opportunities and there are tremendous challenges. I will not go through all of them. I just want to highlight three. Mobile penetration. I mean, this is not just we are talking about mobile penetration in terms of people owning mobiles. This is about people's receptivity to new technology. We have a mobile penetration that is close to 160%. So this can be taken as a proxy to people's desire and the need, and also adoption rates. We have, in the last 5 or 6 years, the National Center for Information Technology has worked in making sure that we have a shared e-government infrastructure. So we have a government network that connects all the central government agencies now. And we are working to take it take this network to the islands now. Already 4 of the 20 atolls are connected. Now we have an e-government service platform, which is our databases and our application servers and all the other services that go with it. We have a national citizen database, not directly under the mandate of NCIT, but under the mandate of the Home Ministry, but connected seamlessly into our data center. So for anyone who needs to deploy an e-government service, almost always wants to have access to the citizen information. And this is available through the ESP. They do not have to go to the Home Ministry to arrange for connectivity to their databases or services. So we have web services available from different ministries, available at a central location for other ministries to use. And last but definitely one of the most important things is leadership. We have a strategic action plan that clearly gives the leadership, and a government that takes lead, not in e-government, but in public sector reform, in good governance and economic development, and clearly mandates that e-government to be used in these areas. So challenges, of course, the small island development context in a very large country is the challenge. So we have islands. Most of our islands are less than half a square kilometer. Most of our communities are less than 500 people, and we have just under 200 of these small communities, and they are spread over nearly 850 kilometers of Indian Ocean. So this is our main challenge. Of course, another challenge is the increase in public expenditure. Over the years, our public expenditure has gone way beyond our means, and this is a challenge. As you are very well aware, all over the countries, all over the world, countries are facing these public expenditure problems. And unions unions of countries are helping countries, and neighbors are helping countries with their debt problems. We have to be very careful not to fall into this trap. Initiatives, we work on the demand side as well as supply side. I think even yesterday this has been highlighted that not very many demand side work has been done. And as government, we tend to focus on what we do, and we supply services. But to actually make it work, we've got to work on the demand side as well. So just to highlight some of the key things that's happening at NCIT, Transport Online is one of our latest initiatives. And here we are hoping to, in the next 18 to 24 months, to put online, fully transactional, all the high impact e-services in the transport sector. Already in the first 3 months, the first service has gone online. Every 3 months, there will be a new service that goes online. This is the strategy. So we have a dedicated team. We have an understanding and an MOU with the transport sector, and we work together, and we have this. We can do this fast-tracked service deployment because we already have the shared infrastructure. We have the citizen services, we have the account login services, authentication services on our ESPs. So now we have the G2G communication. This is the most used e-government service. It was launched late last year, and now it is the only way most of the central agencies, 99% of the central government agencies will not accept paper-based letters from another government agency. So it will not. This is not acceptable anymore. The citizen portal and the business portal gives you information about getting public services. Now in the past, if you are me, you might take 3 days. If you are you might take 1 day to get the same public service. If you are him, you might pay $3. If you're somebody else, you might end up getting it free. Now we have a service charter, a very concise service charter. In the past, you had to go through regulations to find out how much you had to actually pay. So it's easier to call up somebody, and so this makes everything a mess. So now we have a service charter, a concise service charter online. And now, on top of that, we are starting to roll out e-services through this. Now, all the government forms are available to download here. So all the high-impact services The procedures, the addresses, the turnaround times, how long you have to wait, how much you have to pay, everything is there in one single page. So people don't have to read and read and read and trying to figure out what this regulation is actually trying to say and how it applies to them. We have IELTS.gov, which is about transparency. So if you go, you can also try this. It's online for everyone to see. You have the whole nation and all the development projects online. So you can click on an island, you will see electrification project going in, how much money is going in, whose money is going in, what are the outputs of these projects. So all the development information is online for each island, for each atoll. We have the ESP, which is the heart of e-government as we are concerned. Without the ESP, we would not be in a position to roll out online services today. We have the government network, without which again we wouldn't be ready to start online services. And then, of course, on the demand side, we are now working on an e-citizen program, because you've got to have citizens who can accept e-services, who should be able to fill in a form, who should be able to handle an online account. Because we've started issuing accounts. Anyone can apply for a login account to the government portal. So this is about building the capacity. And then we have community centers. Now, while we have very high penetration of internet in the capitals and in some of the capital islands, most of the islands do not. So we have just a couple of weeks ago, this project was launched. So out of the over 198 islands that people live on, 50 islands would have community e-centers dedicated for doing the e-citizen program. So this will be about a 3 or 5 day program teaching them the basic ICT skills, especially about privacy and security and social networking. And then the 2 is about providing the e-services. So all the services we are putting online, we make sure this is channeled through these community centers, and operators of these centers will be the people who help the normal citizens attain these online services. So in terms of development, in the 2010 report of the UN eGov survey, we are 92. In terms of LCD, in the group of least developed countries, we are number 1. In fact, we are not an LCD anymore. We just recently been promoted from a least developed country to a middle income country. So bottom of the middle income, I would say. So we've gone from the top to the bottom. We've been promoted. So in terms of the South Asia, we've always been the top. But then South Asia is a small country and we have many development challenges. So looking at the different details of these indexes, we are average. In terms of e-readiness, globally we are average, but in terms of e-participation, this is very, very challenging. And you can see the geographical challenges we have and the connectivity challenges that it entails. Even in Asia, we are fairly average. That brings me to the end. Thank you.